to the Lipoedema Podcast. We're your hosts, Shell and Tiana, and today we have a special Lipoedema warrior on. It's Caroline Antonino. Hi, Caroline. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, ladies, for having me on.
It's great to have you on, and we're pretty spoiled with you because we're actually doing 2 episodes with you. This is our first of 2 episodes, and then in a few weeks' time, we'll go live with your second episode. So we've got a lot to cover today. Let's get cracking. So I guess we've got to start from the beginning with your lipedema. What first made you realize something wasn't right in your body?
I felt that there was something not right from a very young age. However, all doctors would say, or nutritionists, was exercise more, eat less, calories in, calories out. And so I spent my entire life doing weird and wonderful things like boot camps at 4 o'clock in the morning on the beach and dry reaching, and nothing made sense. In my 30s, I had a bit of a crisis and went to see a personal trainer, and he also was like ripping his hair out and saying, you're one of my hardest training clients. And I was going 3 times a week. At the time, I was also seeing a nutritionist, and their advice was have a wrap for lunch and toast for breakfast. And I was like, yeah, this isn't working. And all my life, I'd see naturopaths and alternative and integrative doctors. And yeah, I'd try everything. In 2024, when I was 51, I was beside myself because in 2022, I had started a carnivore journey. And although initially I was very successful, it got to a point where, the results were not, I guess they weren't matching the effort I was putting in and how seriously I was taking the carnivore journey. And my stress levels were up. I found a GP who I call my carnivore GP, and she recommended I see a nutritionist. And I rolled my eyes at first, and she said, no, please just give her a go. She's the one that's sort of been educating me about keto, carnivore. And so I thought, well, I'll do what my doctors asked me to do. Plus she ran all these tests that I'd never had run before. And yeah, she, as a result of seeing this nutritionist, she had her own clinic, which was a combination of dietitians, nutritionists and a doctor. And she asked me to go to her private clinic because she was consulting obviously at other doctors' practices. She wanted me to do something called a seeker scan, and she said it'll be 15 minutes with the GP, it'll be bulk billed, whatever. And so I went there, and I'd done the in-body scans and I'd done DEXA scans, and I thought, well, maybe this was something new, the technology potentially was better. And she said it's not like the in-body scans where you stand on a plate and hold these arms that come out of the machine. She said it's got MRI technology in it. And I thought, well, it must be state of the art. So I stood on it and then got off and went and sat with the doctor, and she brought up the results, and she was looking at the results. She was looking at me, and it said that I had something ridiculous like 15% lean muscle. And she could see, obviously, that wasn't the case, that I, wasn't, 80 or, 70 whatever percent body fat. And she started asking me questions. Do you bruise easily? And, all the typical questions that, are associated with symptoms of lipedema. And I said, look, I've got bruising right now. And I sort of dropped my jeans and showed her my arms and torso, and she said, you've got lipedema. And I said, what's that? And it was a complete and utter shock. And instead of it being a 15-minute appointment, it ended up being an hour long. And I think I was just in shock. And she brought up the Lipoedema Australia website. She was telling me that conservative, about conservative measures. And it was just, information overload, and that if I wanted plastic surgery, or,
Wow.
liposuction, it would be 20,000 per limb or per area rather. For me, that was already like, I'm doing the maths, and that's 100 grand. And she goes, and you can't have it done here in Adelaide. You've got to go interstate. And I was like, oh my God. So I went down a rabbit hole and started, I think I spoke to Shelley in the early days, and just was following everything and anything online, booked in to see various plastic surgeons, cosmetic surgeons, and, testing done to see if I had any vein, issues.
Right.
Yeah. It was just like, and I know, being told you've got cancer is serious, but for me, it was that shock of hearing a diagnosis that can't be cured, and then I guess some relief in knowing that it wasn't me, it was my body. So I got straight stuck into all the conservative measures, and my brother even bought me a pump, but it wasn't like the ones that they recommend. It was one for athletes who muscle recovery. But I'm like, it's better than nothing. So that was my journey in discovering I had lipedema, which I've had since I was a teenager.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So now that you look back, all of those puzzle pieces going together, it happened to you from a very young age, but it took 51 years to get a proper diagnosis. Yeah, that's something that we focus on a lot at the Lipoedema Podcast, is getting that diagnostic age down, because the average age is 48. Shell was exactly 48.
Yeah, it's 48.
But you had to wait all of those additional painful years at 51. And that's really sad for your quality of life when you've been doing so much to try and get that weight down. So I'm really curious to find out from you, Caroline, when you received your lipedema diagnosis with all of those emotions, specifically, how did it differ to see your body after the diagnosis? Or was it different to view your body with that diagnosis?
I finally was getting the answers I needed to deal with the fact that, the same effort that we put in to dieting and exercise was never going to work. And so I guess I am now a lot more understanding of, I dare to say, a bit more compassionate. And when I do find something that works, I tend to stick to it to the extreme almost. And I don't know, it's been just so frustrating but liberating to know that that lipedema affects so many of us, and yet most specialists and doctors are clueless as to what it is. And even personal trainers and dietitians and nutritionists, like I take everything now with a grain of salt, and it's like, you don't understand, you don't know. And even those people that are trying to push their remedies, it becomes really, really infuriating because, everyone now wants to jump on the bandwagon and make money. And if there was a cure, I'm sure someone would have found it. And, it's a shame that Medicare don't recognize it. And yet if lipedema or lipedema, however you want to pronounce it, goes unchecked, it can lead to lymphedema, which is serious. Like it's pretty debilitating.
Yeah. And then you've got all the joint issues as well, like having knee replacements and hip replacements and ankles. And
it's a snowball effect.
It is.
Caroline, you gave a little teaser to what the focus of our next episode with you would be, which was the carnivore diet. But in this particular episode, was really keen to get your perspective on like lipedema and how it impacts intimacy, because I know from my experience it really does impact intimacy and my comfort level with being intimate and my confidence with being intimate. And I'm keen to hear from you, when you think about intimacy and lipedema together, what feels most important for people to understand from your perspective?
Well, I, unbeknownst to me, became what I describe as a bit of a sex addict, and not in the scientific sense of that addiction. However, I didn't quite understand until recently why I craved so much skin on skin, so to speak. And I mean, trigger warning, I was sexually abused as a child, and I dare say if they did clinical studies on women with lipedema, there'd be a lot of trauma and potentially sexual abuse, assault in their past. But of course, they're never going to do these types of studies. It's hard enough us getting recognition for medical treatment at a reasonable cost. However, in my younger years, I was always frustrated by my big arms, and even to this day, I still don't wear sleeveless stuff. When I go to the beach, that's the one place I don't stress too much, but I'm lucky I tan easily. My aim every summer is to get, my colour so that it sort of camouflages the arms. So I unfortunately, was a late bloomer, and in my 20s, I didn't want to have, sex with the lights on. I just was embarrassed and self-conscious. And then in my 30s, something happened. It was actually, I attended a speed dating night with a friend of mine who was desperate to meet someone, get married, have kids. And I don't know, the next day, I'm like, you know what? I don't want what society wants for me. I don't want to be married. I don't want to have a kid. Like, I just want to have sex. I want to have lots of it. And it's funny how it almost removed all my self-consciousness and all the berating. I don't know. And at the time I was listening to this like evening meditation to fall asleep. And it was, I don't know if you've heard of, I think his name's John Gabriel, and he's written The Gabriel Method. It's a great book, and his sexy voice, and it's all about letting go, and it was sort of subliminal. And I did not change anything about my diet or exercise. And yet listening to that meditation, I dropped a dramatic amount of weight, and I started on the, dating apps before, this was before Tinder and Bumble, when there were other dating, they weren't apps as such, but, websites. And for probably 20 years, I was having the time of my life, and these men were gorgeous. Like, I still, to this day, I love every single one of them. And no one ever said anything negative about my body. In fact, because I had this, I don't know, new lease on life, and I was feeling vibrant and healthy and happy, and, getting the skin on skin that I needed, the weight came off, the confidence was shining through, and I had what I describe as a sexual awakening. It didn't matter what I looked like naked. These men were so appreciative of my, my confidence, and they would tell me stories about, women who were gym junkies and who were so cut and toned and muscular, and, fake boobs. And they would say, no, don't look at me, don't touch me here. And it was bizarre to think that women who've got these perfect bodies according to societal norms were in I guess based on what they were telling me, they were boring in bed. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I got the diagnosis that it occurred to me that every time I would meet with these men was lymphatic, manual lymphatic drainage I was getting. It was a skin on skin. It was like
Oh my, that's
2 hours
interesting.
of caressing and massage, and it was what my body needed, because whenever I'd go for long periods without sex, I would describe this feeling of my body becoming toxic, and I would tell everybody, doctors, chiropractors, I'm like, I need sex like I need to eat, drink, shit. And everyone thought I was bizarre and like I'd been described as promiscuous and what have you. But it was my body knowing what it needed without actually knowing what it was that I had that required that constant, manual lymphatic drainage. I didn't know.
My
but
husband's going to love this episode.
like,
If
I
he gets
swear,
wind
like,
that sex is lymphatic massage, I'm in big trouble.
and it's not the quickies, and it's the 2-hour sexual dates where even if it doesn't lead to penetration, it's the
Touch and the closeness.
touch and the closeness, and for me it was skin on skin. And people used to say to me, I just masturbate. And I could never understand why that wasn't the same. I would say, no, it's not the same. But I didn't realize that it was because you're not getting, when you masturbate, you're not getting the same level of
That
contact.
connection.
That's right, on your skin.
Missing connection.
That's right. It's, I mean, I don't know. Some women might spend a bit of time massaging their boobs. I don't know, but it's still not the same as having, lymphatic drainage massage where, there's a lot more contact and pressure on the external skin. I highly recommend women who are in partnerships to, it's a bit of free, enjoyable lymphatic drainage.
I think like what started your journey and what made it so exceptional was you let go of the expectations. And that is the issue a lot of us face. We are supposed to we feel like we're supposed to show up a certain way, that we are supposed to do things a certain way. And that masks who we really are and what we really want. Whereas you unleashed that. You're like, this is what I want. This is what I need. This makes me feel this way. I'm going to keep doing it.
That's right.
And that is so bloody freeing.
Yeah.
Once the penny dropped, it was like there was no looking back. And I don't care what others say about what they consider my promiscuity. I've never harmed anybody. It's always been consensual. I'm an adult.
That's it.
Mutual enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No one's getting hurt.
That's right. And
unless you like it that way, Caroline.
No, I must admit, because we bruise so easily. So
asking questions.
Yeah, you can't talk me up. Yeah, in fact, when I think about it, I could quite easily be a dominatrix, inflicting pain on others. But you slap me a bit hard. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, we feel it too much.
Yeah, that's right. And we show it too much.
And we show it, yes. So, Caroline, for someone who feels unsure or self-conscious about intimacy, what helps them start to feel more open and confident with their partner? What are your tips for them?
I mean, if you're already in a intimate relationship, just talking through, not necessarily in the throes of passion, but, helping your partner understand your concerns and your, insecurities can definitely help them to understand what it takes for you to feel more comfortable in your own skin. And I just think communication is key, open and honest communication. And I think if there are like underlying issues that need to be dealt with the support and care of, a psychologist, a life coach, psychiatrist, then definitely address that as well. However, men love us women, and they don't care, if there's stretch marks or, curves. And admittedly, I'm not going after men who don't find me attractive. So,
Sure.
but if you're already in a relationship, then your partner is going to love you irrespective of what size you are, because it's the person inside that they fell in love with and they continue to be in love with. So, yeah, I just, and stop looking at these influencers and doom scrolling. We're all unique. Don't compare yourself to anyone. You are your own unique being. And if I can find many to satisfy the lymphatic drainage that I needed, then surely someone who's been in a relationship for 20 odd years has someone that loves them unconditionally and is willing to do what it takes to improve and enhance that area of life that I feel it's really essential. That, I mean, I'm a huge fan of sex and intimacy.
It's so nice to hear somebody talk about it in such a bold and confident way, because I feel like that's not the usual discourse that we as women get to hear and experience and feel okay about. And so it does put a lot, I mean, I don't want to get any lymphatic massage therapist out of a job knowing that you can just have sex with your partner and get lymphatic drainage.
They could start offering a happy ending.
What amazing for your lymphatic system, right? Like, it's just another thing that we get to do to support our lymphatics. And it's like a double whammy, isn't it? So you get that pleasure and that connection with your partner, but you also get a bit of lymphatic drainage. Win-win.
Yeah.
We're after win.
Yes. As many as we can get.
Yep. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Caroline. That we need to have more conversations like this.
I think we do too. I mean, I know I definitely do, to have more conversations to get just me out of. I also just wanted to say before we end this episode, considering we're on this topic of intimacy, is that if you don't have a high libido or anything, it could be a multitude of reasons, but one reason that sticks in my mind at the moment is medications. Medications can lower your libido. So obviously look for everything. And if you do have a low libido and you're not interested, talk to your doctor, because it may just be something that's not quite right in your body that can be easily fixed, or it's something that your medication is doing that they could experiment with that could improve. So if you are feeling like you don't identify with Caroline and that confidence and that vibrancy, but you crave it, and I think a lot of us crave it. To have that confidence, but some of us just can't get there, then perhaps there's something that your practitioner can help you with.
Yeah, good idea. And also, there's a lot of research. We spoke with Heather Quinn. That was probably earlier in the podcast when we first started. And she's doing a PhD into intimacy and lipedema. So when those results come out, that will be fascinating. And I actually think she was looking at making a book so that she could sell the book and we can read it, which would be amazing.
That would be very cool.
Definitely.
Caroline, thank you so much for coming on with us and talking about intimacy. We are actually very spoiled because we're going to have you on again on another episode in a few weeks to tackle your experience with the carnivore diet. But until then, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies. Bye.
Lipoedema and its symptoms vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced in this podcast are of a personal nature and used for educational purposes.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shell and Tiana from the Lipoedema Podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.